Hello there. On the afternoon of April 2nd, 2014, a 60-year-old man named Wu, a resident of a village located on the outskirts of Dongren City, Guizhou Province, was ferrying people across the Xinjiang River in his boat as usual. It was the last month of the dry season, so the riverbank was very dry and the water level was low compared to the rainy season, making Mr. Wu's job much more difficult. Around 11 o'clock in the morning, while he was waiting for the last passengers to cross the river before heading home just a few dozen meters away to have lunch, while rowing the boat, he noticed an unfamiliar object floating and bobbing on the river, gradually drifting towards the bow of his boat, which caught Mr. Wu's attention. From a distance, he recognized that the object was pale orange in color and had a curved shape quite large. At first, he thought it was a sofa chair with armrests that someone had thrown into the river, but as he rowed closer, he was startled and frightened. The horrifying scene before his eyes was a floating corpse, tied up with ropes with the head and upper body wrapped in a pale orange tarp. Mr. Wu immediately called the police, and upon receiving the report, the police quickly arrived at the scene and retrieved the body for examination. The tarp was tightly wrapped around the victim's head and upper body to prevent it from coming loose. When they removed the tarp, they discovered that it was the body of a young woman, approximately 20 to 25 years old, and had been submerged in the water for a long time. The victim had multiple open wounds on her face, neck, and chest, indicating that this was a murder scene. The police began investigating the pale orange tarp, which had a clearly printed brand name of a fertilizer company and the words Kali Chloride on it. The victim was tightly bound with ropes, and a large concrete brick with 2 holes was tied to the body to prevent it from floating on the water. The police questioned whether the perpetrator lived near the upper reaches of the Xinjiang River. Upon examining the body, no identification card, bank card, mobile phone, or other related items were found to verify the victim's identity. The forensic evaluation revealed that the scalp, fingernails, and toenails had peeled off due to the degree of decomposition. Based on the forensic examination, the estimated time of death was approximately 2 weeks prior to the discovery of the body on April 2nd, 2014, placing the time of death around March 17th. There were multiple wounds on the victim's neck and chest, identified as being caused by a sharp-edged weapon, and there was also a stab wound to the heart, indicating that the perpetrator had used a sharp knife in the attack. During the autopsy, the forensic doctors suspected that the victim might have been pregnant, as the abdominal area of the body was larger than normal. Although the decomposition had caused the abdomen to swell, it could not have swollen to that extent. During the examination, they made an even more heartbreaking discovery inside the uterus of the deceased. There was a fetus in a downward position. Based on the weight level of development and the position of the fetus's head, they determined that this woman had been murdered in the 7th month of her pregnancy and was expecting a baby boy. This case became a double homicide, an unforgivable act against a pregnant woman in the late stages of pregnancy. It was not only a serious criminal responsibility under the law, but also an extremely cruel and condemnable act, especially considering that the perpetrator must have been aware of the victim's pregnancy. According to the police analysis, the unfortunate death of this female victim is likely related to her pregnancy. For example, the perpetrator may have wanted to conceal this relationship and not accept her and the child, or there may have been some significant conflicts that led him to act so cruelly. Finding the biological father of the child may be a breakthrough in solving the case. Based on the hydrological analysis of the Xinjiang River, the location where the body was found is estimated to be 3 to 5 kilometers away from the discovery site. This conclusion is based on recent hydrological conditions where the water level is low and flowing slowly during the dry season. The police have made conclusions based on the time of death, distance, and weather conditions to aid in the investigation. The story begins when the police collect DNA samples from the unborn child and compare it with the DNA of individuals with criminal records stored in the national database. The results show a complete match between the DNA sample of the child and that of Hu Qian. Previously, Qian had been involved in a marriage fraud case and had her DNA collected and stored by the Nantong police, so the DNA comparison yielded a match in this case. The Guizhou Criminal Police immediately contacted the Nantong and Jiangsu police to inquire further about Hu Qian's involvement in previous criminal activities. The story reveals that Qian had deceived a man and demanded a large sum of money through a marriage fraud in Jiangsu. However, when the Nantong police learned that Qian was pregnant, they allowed her to stay outside while awaiting trial. Just a few months later, Hu Qian's body was found on the Xinjiang River, suggesting a possible connection between the marriage fraud case and the linked murder case. Liu Min, the person deceived by Hu Qian, was infuriated to learn that he had been tricked out of a large sum of money. He provided information to the police and demanded the return of 80,000 yuan. Although he had a motive to commit the crime, there was no time for Liu Min to do so because he had been working diligently without taking any days off. Despite having a motive, the evidence against Liu Min as an external offender was solid, with multiple witnesses confirming it. Therefore, the police eliminated Liu Min from the list of suspects. They also visited Hu Qian's residence based on the address listed on her household registration information in the National Population Database. A group of police officers went to Qian's house in hopes of learning more about her circumstances from her relatives in order to determine potential suspects through her social connections. The victim's family has a brother named Hu Pham. According to Hu Pham, their mother passed away when Hu Qian was only 9 years old, and since then, the three of them relied on each other. Their house is located in a small village in Pingjiang District, Dongren Province. Apart from an electric fan and a small TV, there are no valuable items in the house. Hu Pham mentioned that since childhood, Qian had a habit of lying to their father, who had a hot temper. Qian was once beaten by their father and angrily left home when she was only 16 years old. Even after their father's death, Hu Qian never returned home, and she had little contact with the family while working far away. Hu Qian not only experienced a difficult childhood, but also had a life full of freedom and upheaval as she grew up. At the age of 16, Qian had simultaneous relationships with two men, and she later gave birth to a baby girl with one of them. However, the relationships didn't last, so she decided to give the child to the other man for upbringing. In 2013, Qian started dating a taxi driver named Tang Zhao, and they were living together. Based on the account from the victim's brother, the police quickly located Tang Zhao. He confessed to the police that they were truly in love and living together. However, around 9 p.m. on March 15, 2014, Qian received a phone call and left the house, never to return. Since then, no one has known anything about Hu Qian, and Tang Zhao is also searching for her. Tang Zhao also told the police that he had offered to give Qian a ride that night, but she refused and went alone. So why did Qian refuse to let her boyfriend take her? Who did Qian meet and where did she go? Who called Qian, and is the murder case related to that phone call? The police contacted the mobile network to check the call logs for Qian on the night of March 15th and confirmed that there was indeed a call, Hu Qian, at 9 p.m. that evening, and the identity of the caller was quickly determined. The caller's name was Wang Shudin, a 25-year-old from Ruiqian District, Guiyang Province. Based on the address from the registered domicile, the police discovered Wang Shudin's house but did not find him there. His parents told the police that Din was currently in Guangxi and had left Guizhou half a month ago, which coincided with the time of Hu Qian's murder. With the contact information provided by Din's family, the police quickly located him. Wang Shudin confessed to the police that he and Hu Qian met through an online chat application and had been living together for a while. They had just had their wedding ceremony on March 8th of this year, which was a week before the incident. Upon learning that the victim had been murdered, Wang Shudin's parents were completely surprised and told the police that Hu Qian was their daughter-in-law. However, there were some illogical issues. If it was true that Wang Shudin and Hu Qian had just gotten married on March 8th, then why was Hu Qian living with Tang Zhao on March 15th? Just 1 week after getting married, did she marry one person and go on a honeymoon with another? And why did both Tang Zhao and Wang Shudin assert that Hu Qian was living with them when she didn't have a twin sister to cause confusion? Could she possibly have the ability to be in two places at once, living with two men at the same time? Not to mention, both of them knew that Qian was pregnant. How could a woman like her maintain relationships with two men at the same time? The police speculated that one of the two men was lying. To clarify the case, the Guizhou police checked Qian's marriage registration again, but the complexity increased. It turned out that Qian was married, but her current and legal husband was a man named Tu, not Tang Zhao or Wang Shudin. Furthermore, Hu Qian was currently living in Pingjiang District, Dongren, Guizhou. It was revealed that after an argument with her husband, Qian left her less than 1-year-old son with him and went to another place to live and work, seeking new relationships at the age of 20. She didn't divorce her husband, but never fulfilled the responsibilities of a mother. She didn't even care about her 2 children with the 2 men in her past, despite living very close to them. Therefore, both Tang Zhao and Wang Shudin were targets that Hu Qian deceived emotionally, and it is highly possible that one of them killed her after realizing they had been deceived. The police immediately launched a comprehensive investigation into Tang Zhao and Wang Shudin, collecting their blood samples and sending them to the DNA laboratory. The police also investigated the activity schedules of Tang Zhao and Wang Shudin during the time of the incident. During the investigation, Wang Shudin told the police that he did call Hu Qian on the evening of March 15th, but he was in Guangxi at that time, not Dongren, Guizhou. Through various investigations with Wang Shudin's friends and colleagues in Guangxi, the police confirmed that after Wang Shudin and Hu Qian got married on March 8th, a few days later, he went to Guangxi for work. So he was not present in the local area at the time of the crime, and the distance between Guangxi and Guizhou is quite far. Considering the time and distance, Wang Shudin did not have time to commit the crime, so he was removed from the list of suspects. Based on other information provided by the public, the police determined that on the night of March 15th, there was heavy rain in the Dongyan area. How could Qian, a pregnant woman of over 7 months, go out in such heavy rain? The phone call that Wang Shudin made after 9 p.m. was real, but he was in Guangxi, so the information that Qian went to meet the person who made this phone call is inaccurate. Perhaps the information that Tang Zhao provided to the police earlier was false, and he is definitely covering up something. The police raided Tang Zhao's house and thoroughly searched the bedroom where Tang Zhao and Hu Qian used to live together. At the crime scene, the police found some dark red spots on the floral tiles of the floor, very small circular spots with a diameter of only about 0.2 centimeters. There were also very small bloodstains in the form of splattered droplets on the mattress and the computer desk with a width of about 0.2 centimeters and a length of about 1 centimeter. There were bloodstains on the bedside table and even faint bloodstains on the wall due to wiping, indicating that the crime scene had been cleaned. The test results showed that the blood found at the scene belonged to the victim Hu Qian. Therefore, Tang Zhao's bedroom is very likely the primary crime scene, and Tang Zhao will be the main suspect in this case. Faced with such solid evidence, Tang Zhao had to admit that he himself was the killer of Hu Qian. He recounted that he is currently a taxi driver. In March of 2013, while he was searching for and inviting passengers at the Dongyan train station, he met Qian. At that time, Qian had just gotten off the train and got into Tang Zhao's taxi. Seeing this beautiful girl, Tang Zhao took the initiative to start a conversation, and the two had a very pleasant chat along the way. When they arrived at their destination, Qian got out of the car and they exchanged contact information and started talking to each other regularly. One night, Qian called Tang Zhao and asked where he was, requesting him to pick her up at her house. Because she was feeling sad and didn't know where to go, Qian decided to stay with Tang Zhao from that night onwards, and they began living together. At this time, Tang Zhao was not single, but his marriage had been going on for a long time without children, despite seeking treatment everywhere. The relationship between the two spouses was very cold, and they were in the process of getting divorced. A month after completing the divorce proceedings, Tang Zhao brought Hu Qian home and publicly announced this relationship to his family. Although living in Tang Zhao's house, Qian often came home early or late and said that she liked playing cards outside. Besides browsing the internet at home, searching for people online had become an important part of Hu Qian's life. Tang Zhao spoiled Qian, so he didn't inquire further about this matter. Sometimes Qian even left home and didn't return for a few days. To have a better life, Tang Zhao worked extra hours and drove both day and night, so he had no time to care about Qian. In fact, many nights Tang Zhao slept in his car instead of going home. After living together for a few months in October 2013, Qian began to experience fatigue symptoms. When they went to the hospital for a checkup, Tang Zhao made a big surprise discovery that Hu Qian was 2 months pregnant. Since Tang Zhao and his ex-wife had never had children, he was very surprised and immediately shared the good news with his family. To ensure that Qian could comfortably nurture the pregnancy, Tang Zhao's mother came from the countryside to take care of all the household chores. Tang Zhao's family did everything to make Qian's life as comfortable as possible, and every few weeks Tang Zhao would take Qian to the hospital for checkups and ultrasound scans. However, on a day in March 2014, Hu Qian told Tang Zhao that she would go to Guangzhou for about a week. Under the questioning of Tang Zhao, Hu Qian finally admitted that she had another lover named Wang Shudin, but when discussing the matter, Hu Qian showed no remorse, and it led to a loud argument between the two. Qian yelled at Tang Zhao, saying that the child in her womb was not his, but Wang Shudin's. Upon hearing this, Tang Zhao was shocked. This incident began nearly a year ago when Qian and Tang Zhao started living together, and she was not pregnant yet. Tang Zhao spent the whole day driving to earn money while Qian stayed at home and played cards. Feeling lonely at times, she went on social media to chat. In May 2013, Qian coincidentally met Wang Shudin through QQ chat, and they got along well during their online conversations. At that time, Wang Shudin was still working in Guangxi. In July 2013, Wang Shudin returned home to Dongren, Guizhou. Since they lived in the same area, Quyen and Din quickly met each other in person. On the first day Din returned, Quyen went to the train station to pick him up, and from then on their online romantic relationship quickly developed into real-life encounters. Compared to Tang Zhao, Wang Shudin was younger, more handsome, humorous, and knew how to please women. Quyen was immediately attracted to him when they first met, and they rented a room in Dongren to spend a passionate night together. In the following period, Quyen frequently exchanged messages and went on dates with Wang Shudin. Their relationship grew stronger, so Quyen often left Tang Zhao's house for a few days to be with Wang Shudin. When she was alone at home before being pregnant, her absence for several days didn't raise any suspicions from Tang Zhao's family, as her mother-in-law took care of the household chores. In reality, during that time, Quyen spent more time with Tang Zhao's family, but she never informed Tang Zhao's mother about her whereabouts. In fact, from the time Quyen met Wang Shudin until her murder in March 2014, for a period of 10 months, Quyen maintained a love triangle relationship with both men without being discovered. She constantly took advantage of their trust, telling them that she went out to play cards for a few days because she was bored, and when she was with Wang Shudin, she used the excuse of visiting her biological father's house and her older brother. In this way, she moved between the two men's houses, deceiving and manipulating both of them. In November 2013, Din noticed signs of Quyen's morning sickness, so he took her to the hospital for a checkup and received the news that Quyen was pregnant. After Wang Shudin's family learned about this, they were extremely happy. Seeing Quyen's growing belly, Din's family suggested that they go through the marriage registration process several times, but Quyen refused because she was still legally married to the man named Tu. She often used the excuse of having a large belly and inconvenience in traveling to her hometown to obtain the necessary documents, promising to register after giving birth. On March 8, 2014, Din's family held a wedding reception for their son, and Quyen witnessed by relatives and friends, but they didn't register the marriage according to local customs. After the reception, the two of them became husband and wife, but in reality, Din knew nothing about his wife's true circumstances. Whenever he asked about Quyen's family, she remained silent and said that her mother had passed away early and she didn't get along with her father, so she didn't want to mention them. Tang Zhao knew about all of these things, and he even knew that Quyen had deceived and embezzled a significant amount of money from another man. After tricking that poor guy, Quyen immediately took the money and fled from Nantong, Jiangsu, back to Dongren, Guizhou. That day was also the day when Tang Zhao and Quyen met each other. In the future, when the police came to investigate and handle the marriage fraud case, Quyen had been living with Tang Zhao and had been staying outside due to her pregnancy. Because the case of Quyen's DNA fraud had been entered into the National DNA Database System. Tang Zhao also knew many bad things about Quyen's past, but he still disregarded them and cared for her. However, time and time again, Quyen pushed Tang Zhao to the breaking point. On the day the infidelity was discovered and Quyen admitted that the child in her womb was not Tang Zhao's, his reaction to this situation was beyond everyone's prediction. Tang Zhao collapsed in agony and told Quyen that as long as the child carried his surname, he would keep the child's parentage a secret. Even if the child was not his biological child, he didn't care and would love the baby as his own. Upon hearing this, Quyen told Tang Zhao that she would break up with Wang Shudin and live with him to create a happy family for the child. Tang Zhao truly believed Quyen's words, but on the evening of March 15, 2014, an unexpected phone call shattered everything. That night, while Quyen and Tang Zhao were asleep, Quyen thought Tang Zhao was asleep, so when Wang Shudin called, she went outside the living room to answer the phone. During the phone call, Quyen agreed with Wang Shudin that she would come to his house in the next 2 days to live with him and wait for the birth of the child. Tang Zhao, lying on the bed, heard everything clearly. This deception followed another deception, fueling Tang Zhao's anger. In a fit of madness, Tang Zhao used a knife to attack and kill Quyen, then wrapped her body in a tarpaulin bag. Because Quyen's eyes were wide open and terrifying, Tang Zhao had to cover her face. He then took Quyen's body to the Xinjiang River, tied a large cement brick to it and threw it in. Due to the large brick, the body quickly sank, and Tang Zhao stood there observing for a while before leaving. However, after more than 10 days, the body resurfaced and decomposed, and it was discovered by a ferryman. Initially, the police suspected that Tang Zhao was lying, but when the whole truth of the case came to light, it was revealed that Quyen, the victim, was the most deceptive. The case of the murder of a 7-month pregnant woman and the disposal of the body in the Xinjiang River had been resolved, but behind it all was a sigh of relief from everyone who learned about the case. Tang Zhao's act of killing Especially killing a pregnant woman was extremely cruel and unacceptable. However, when considering the events, Hu Qian, although a victim, also had a part of the blame that could not be denied. Hu Qian continuously played with the emotions of multiple men at the same time. Even until her death, she couldn't be sure who the father of her unborn child was. When comparing DNA, the police determined that Tang Zhao was the biological father of the fetus in Hu Qian's womb, not Wang Shudin as she had claimed. When the police informed Tang Zhao of this result in prison, he completely broke down and couldn't accept the truth. Tang Zhao showed deep remorse since his arrest, but upon receiving this news, it was beyond his endurance. He repeatedly banged his head on the table and cried bitterly. Tang Zhao had sought redemption in the hope of having a child, even willing to accept and raise a child who was not his own, but being deceived time and time again pushed Tang Zhao to the point where he couldn't control himself and ended up taking the lives of not only Hu Qian but also his unborn son. For Tang Zhao, this was the most terrible and unimaginably painful punishment. Although the victim had some part of the fault, this case became aggravated due to the murder of a pregnant woman, and Tang Zhao couldn't escape the death penalty. The consequences of this case were truly painful and heartbreaking, not only for Hu Qian and Tang Zhao, but also for the innocent little life that was permanently denied the chance to be born, caught in the whirlwind of money, love, and deception of adults. At 6:20 p.m. on June 27th, 2022, in Yinchuan District, Qifeng City, Inner Mongolia, Autonomous Region. Heavy rain poured down while people hurriedly walked on the road to return home after a long, tiring day of work. At that time, outside a small apartment in a mini condominium, a young girl stood by the apartment door and knocked for a while, but her younger sister didn't come to open the door. She used her mobile phone to call the landline inside the house, but no one answered. Since she forgot to bring the keys, she had no other way to get inside. She had to make a phone call to inform her mother, and upon hearing her eldest daughter's words, the mother named Liu Yuan also felt worried. At that moment, Liu Yuan was working at a supermarket, and it happened to be the rush hour when customers on their way home stopped by to do some shopping. The checkout counters were crowded with people waiting in line, so it would take a little while before she could ask for time off. When Liu Yuan arrived home and immediately opened the door, she was shocked by the scene before her causing her to panic. Her youngest daughter, Yao Ding, was lying unconscious on the bed. The girl's head was covered in blood, with a large wound on her forehead that soaked the pillow with blood. There were bruises and marks on her wrists and legs, clearly indicating a pale bluish hue of the skin. Realizing that her daughter was dead, Liu Yuan became hysterical, crying and shaking Xiao Ding. A few minutes later, she calmed down and quickly grabbed her phone to call her ex-husband Wang Bing. Although they had divorced in Liu Yuan's thoughts, Wang Bing was still the most reliable person. When Wang Bing arrived at the scene, he was also extremely distressed by the current situation, so he quickly called for an ambulance and the police. The doctors arrived promptly at the scene, as the house was quite close to the hospital, only about 2 kilometers away. After examining the condition of the victim, the doctors determined that Xiao Ding had died about 2 hours earlier. At this point, the house had turned into a crime scene, and the police began investigating the details at the scene. However, there were very few mixed clues. The victim's name was Xiao Ding, 13 years old, wearing a light yellow shirt and black pants. The girl lay face up on the small bed in the bedroom with her head slightly tilted towards the door. There were scratches and severe wounds on her face from being beaten with a blunt object. Her ankles and wrists showed signs of pooling blood under the skin from being tightly bound. Based on the bruises on the victim's limbs, the police believed that she had been bound with duct tape, as the marks were clear and sharp, unlike the imprints of ropes or wires. The forensic examination revealed that the cause of Xiao Ding's death was severe head trauma, with multiple strong forces impacting her head, causing a partial fracture and indentation of the skull. The weapon that caused this trauma was determined to be a large, flat, hard object. The police reconstructed the scene, indicating that after Xiao Ding returned home, she opened the door, changed her shoes, and entered the house. At that time, someone knocked on the door and Xiao Ding went to answer it. Afterward, the assailant subdued and bound Xiao Ding. The motive behind the attack was not clear, but the assailant repeatedly struck Xiao Ding's head, resulting in her death. Finally, the murderer cut the bindings and placed the girl's body on the bed before leaving. During the investigation, the police made a new discovery. The victim's mother noticed that a mop was placed right at the entrance of the house in the hallway. Liu Yuan usually mopped the floor every 2 days, but on the day of the incident, she didn't mop the floor, and the mop was not in its usual position as she usually kept it in the bathroom. The police believed that the suspect used the mop to clean up the blood after committing the crime, which made the crime scene different from other cases. The police and Liu Yuan searched the house but found no significant losses. However, they discovered a stainless steel frying pan on the kitchen shelf that was missing with only a glass lid remaining. According to the forensic report, the victim was attacked with a large blunt instrument, leading the police to suspect that the assailant may have used that frying pan as a murder weapon. No tape rolls used by the assailant were found inside the house, nor was there any trace of the tape that he had used to bind the victim. It is likely that the perpetrator removed these pieces of evidence along with the murder weapon before leaving. The police are questioning whether this could be a burglary attempt that escalated into a homicide or a case of personal revenge. During the investigation, they discovered that the Liu Yuan family is not wealthy, with a monthly income of only a few thousand yuan. Both Liu Yuan and her eldest daughter Yu Xuan work as employees, with Liu Yuan employed at a supermarket and Yu Xuan serving at a restaurant in the area. This apartment complex has a stable population consisting mostly of local residents, and the security is relatively assured, with few unknown individuals coming and going. However, not many families in this area are financially well off, and most of them have average or low economic conditions. If a thief or robber had chosen such a community to commit a crime, it is unlikely. Furthermore, the entrance to Uyen's house was not damaged, and the windows remained intact without any signs of forced entry. This indicates that the perpetrator may have been let in by Yao Ding. Moreover, there is no evidence of a clear search for property inside the house, suggesting that it is not a murder committed for the purpose of robbery. In addition, Yao Ding's mother and sister stated that there were only 2 large tape rolls in the house which remained untouched. This means that the tape used to bind the victim was prepared by the perpetrator in advance. It is clear that he had a plan before coming here and was able to enter the house with Zhao Ding's permission. Perhaps the suspect is someone familiar to Zhao Ding, but what could be his motive for committing such a brutal murder against a child? Subsequently, the police went to Zhao Ding's school to gather more useful information. The teacher revealed that Zhao Ding was lively and cheerful at school, getting along well with her classmates. She was never isolated or involved in any violent incidents at school, and she had no conflicts with her classmates. Zhao Ding's academic performance was excellent, and she was beloved by many, including teachers and classmates. However, a neighbor across from Yuan's house remembered a detail and informed the police that about a month ago, one afternoon when Zhao Ding was returning from school, she ran straight into the house in fear without opening the door. She later told this neighbor that a strange man had been following her all the way home. The neighbor recalls that at around 5 p.m., Zhao Ding borrowed her phone to call her mother. Liu Yuan also confirmed this to the police, stating that her daughter was extremely frightened and recounted encountering a man with a stubble mustache wearing a black mask who was lurking behind her. One afternoon, Zhao Ding decided to take a shortcut to get home faster, but she still noticed the man following her at a distance of only 20 meters. The man wore a hat, a mask, and maintained a certain distance from Zhao Ding, making it difficult for her to clearly see his appearance. However, he stopped following Zhao Ding afterwards, so Liu Yuan did not pay much attention or investigate the man further. Later, the police collected surveillance videos of Zhao Ding on her way home from school that day, but did not find any suspicious individuals matching Zhao Ding's description. This could be because there were several sections on her way home without cameras, or the camera angles were obstructed, allowing the attacker to avoid being recorded. The police speculated that since Zhao Ding was young, the likelihood of her causing a major conflict leading to murder was low, and the motive could be related to the emotional conflicts of her mother or older sister. Zhao Ding's older sister Yu Xuan is 20 years old and has a boyfriend named Yang Qian who works with her at a restaurant. Their relationship had only begun a few months ago, but recently, due to incompatibility and excessive controlling jealousy from Qian, Xuan decided to break up and transfer to another restaurant to avoid meeting her ex-boyfriend. However, Qian continued to pursue her and even went to the apartment complex where Xuan lived to bring flowers, gifts, and even breakfast. Xuan had rejected him multiple times and asked her younger sister Xiao Ding to meet him and say that she was not at home. After several instances like this, it seemed that Qian had understood and stopped coming. However, the police still suspected that the emotional conflicts of the victim's older sister could have led to Qian's cruel actions towards Xiao Ding as a form of revenge. After arriving at the restaurant where Yu Xuan used to work, the police investigated this man, Yang Qian. The restaurant owner revealed that Qian had requested an early salary to return to his hometown in Sichuan and told the owner that he had bought a train ticket for the morning of June 27th, which was the same day Xiao Ding had the accident. Subsequently, the police checked and found the train ticket that Yang Qian had purchased for departure on the same afternoon. When checking the train station's surveillance camera, the police confirmed that he had passed through the ticket control gate and boarded the train. Therefore, at 4 p.m., he had already left for Sichuan and couldn't have committed the crime at Xiaoding's house. Yongqian was removed from the list of suspects. The police wanted to investigate further into the relationships of Xiaoding's mother, but Liu Yuan, who had just lost her daughter, was in shock and unable to provide clear and valuable information to the police. However, Wang Bing, Liu Yuan's ex-husband, suspected that another person who was also Liu Yuan's ex-husband had killed the little girl. In fact, Wang Bing was Liu Yuan's third husband, as she had been married twice before meeting him. Her first husband was the biological father of Yu Xuan and Xiaoding, but he passed away in a car accident. After her husband's death, Yuan married her second husband named Li Ping, who was a violent person and often physically abused her when he was angry. He had even beaten both of Yuan's children from a previous marriage when he was drunk. She endured this relationship for nearly a year before deciding to divorce him. Even after the divorce, he continued to harass Liu Yuan on many occasions. He appeared in the supermarket and deliberately lined up at Yuan's cashier counter, staring at her, causing her to feel worried and uncomfortable. One evening, Wang Bing went to Yuan's house to bring food for her and the two children, but saw his ex-wife sitting on the couch chatting intimately with another man. Although Wang Bing and Liu Yuan were divorced, he frequently came to shop and take care of the three of them. Wang Bing believed that he knew about Yuan's new relationship, and perhaps Li Peng also knew, because he cared a lot about her. This made Li Peng angry and led to retaliatory actions. At this moment, Xiaoding's older sister recalled a suspicious incident. Not long ago, Xiaoding discovered a small camera hidden in a wardrobe at home and told Yu Xuan about it. When they found and deactivated the surveillance device, a few days later the camera mysteriously disappeared. The police believed that the person who installed the camera in the room was the murderer. The fact that he could easily enter and remove the camera from the house indicated that the suspect not only knew the habits and schedule of activities of Liu Yuan and her son, but also had a key to the apartment. Li Peng was also familiar with the habits of Liu Yuan and her family because he was an acquaintance. Therefore, it was possible that he had obtained a key and entered the house. If it was indeed Li Peng, he would have to appear near the residential area. However, the mini apartment complex gate didn't have a surveillance camera, so the police decided to investigate the surrounding area. During the investigation, the police received a report from an elderly woman who stated that around 5:45 to 6 p.m. she saw a tall man approximately 1.65 meters in height, slightly thin, wearing a black beanie and a face mask, hastily descending the stairs. This person was carrying a bag and wearing dark-colored clothing, but what caught her attention was that the bag he was carrying was pink. He moved as if he was running, which drew her attention to this strange behavior. Since the apartment complex didn't have surveillance cameras, the investigators had to search for surveillance cameras in the neighboring area. Finally, they found data from a camera at a street corner near the victim's apartment complex. Although the angle was a bit far, they still saw a man wearing a black beanie similar to the witness's description. However, the image was unclear because the camera was too far and the man was moving in the opposite direction. The police allowed Liu Yuan, Yu Xuan, and Wang Bing to watch the video in order to identify the man, but none of them could determine his identity. The image was too blurry due to the distance of the camera and the man moving in the opposite direction. It was possible that this person was Li Peng because he was also around 1.65 meters tall, matching the witness's description. To avoid causing disturbance, the police continued their investigation by probing some acquaintances of Li Peng about his schedule on June 27th, but no one knew what he did or where he went on that day. Therefore, the police decided to monitor the activities of this man by reviewing the video and tracking him. However, due to heavy rain in recent days, the license plate was obscured by mud splashes, making it difficult to identify. However, later on, the investigators discovered a notable detail from the surveillance video. The man seemed to be driving while throwing something into the roadside grass. Immediately, the police went to the location where he threw the object and found a pink paper bag. When they opened it, they found torn-up pieces of paper. After piecing them together, they discovered that they were some of Xiaoding's school admission documents, including Liu Yuan's signature. With this information, the police became suspicious that the man no longer existed, and it was important to note that he had gained access to the victim's house. After continuing to monitor from various other cameras along the subsequent routes, the police finally obtained a photo capturing the license plate of the man's vehicle at a security checkpoint. However, when the identity of the vehicle owner was revealed, the police were surprised to find out that it was not the second husband Li Peng, but the suspect turned out to be the person who had been by Liu Yuan's side and actively supported the investigation from the beginning. He was Wang Bing, the third husband of Liu Yuan. At the same time, the crime scene investigation team made some significant discoveries while searching around the house where the murder occurred. They found a severely deformed metal pan in a pile of trash behind the building, indicating that a strong force had impacted it. Technicians tested the blood residue at the bottom of the pan and discovered that it belonged to Xiaoding. Additionally, the suspect's DNA was found on the metal handle of the pan, matching the DNA of Wang Bing, Liu Yuan's third husband. With such clear evidence, Wang Bing could not deny his crime. However, everyone wondered why someone could be so cruel to a 13-year-old child. Wang Bing was the first person Liu Yuan contacted after the incident, indicating that Liu Yuan trusted Wang Bing greatly. Moreover, Wang Bing was very concerned about Liu Yuan and actively cooperated with the police investigation. So what caused Wang Bing to commit such a heinous act against Xiaoding? The police revealed that Wang Bing and Liu Yuan had divorced at the end of March 2022, just about 3 months before the murder occurred. After the divorce, the two still maintained regular contact, but everything came to a halt by the end of May. What happened during this time? Could this be the actual reason Xiaoding was killed? In fact, 3 years ago, Liu Yuan and her 2 daughters moved to this mini apartment. She and her eldest daughter worked at a supermarket and a restaurant in the area, while her younger daughter was still attending school. After the death of her first husband, she met and married her second husband, Li Peng, in search of a stable life for herself and her 2 daughters. However, the marriage lasted only a few months due to Li Peng's violent and abusive nature. During his drunken episodes, Li Peng would even physically assault the 3 of them. Eventually, Liu Yuan and Li Peng divorced to escape from this hellish marriage. Since then, Yuan isolated herself and vowed not to remarry, devoting all her time to caring for and raising her 2 daughters. However, after some time, Yuan coincidentally met Wang Bing on social media. Not long after, they arranged to meet, and Yuan was drawn to Wang Bing's cheerful and outgoing personality. However, Wang Bing's family did not approve of this relationship. They argued that Yuan was 1 year older than Wang Bing and he had already been married twice with 2 children of her own. Furthermore, Wang Bing came from a well-off background, and his mother felt that Liu Yuan was entirely unworthy of her son. More importantly, Wang Bing's family believed that Yuan's intention in wanting to marry their son was not simply for love but to gain access to Wang Bing's wealth. They even demanded that Wang Bing have his assets notarized before marriage to prevent Yuan from claiming a share in case of divorce. After unsuccessful objections, Wang Bing's mother reluctantly accepted Yuan because she expressed a willingness to bear another child even though she already had 2 daughters. However, several months after their marriage, Yuan and Wang Bing still had no children, causing increasing worry for Wang Bing's mother about the lack of a male heir. The relationship between Yuan and Wang Bing's family deteriorated, and the couple grew more distant because of this issue. They believed that Yuan didn't genuinely want to have children, but only made promises to enter Wang Bing's family and then used some means to avoid pregnancy. From these suspicions, the relationship between the couple started to fracture. Wang Bing had initially desired to become a father, but now not only had to take care of Yuan's 2 daughters, but also became increasingly irritated with Xiaoding. The constant scolding from his stepfather made the young girl withdraw further into herself. This deeply saddened Yuan, who had hoped to find someone to rely on for herself and her children, but each marriage only brought more misery. The breaking point came during a meal when Xiaoding expressed her desire to raise a kitten, and Wang Bing angrily shouted at the little girl. He said that if you want to take care of a cat, you have to leave your own food for the cat to eat. If not, he will kick the child's parents out of the house. Liu Yuan felt that she couldn't let her children live in such a family anymore, so she decided to get a divorce. Due to the conflicts between the two, Wang Bing also agreed with this decision. However, after the divorce, Wang Bing couldn't forget her and often brought daily necessities to help her parents and children. In May 2022, Wang's family introduced Wang Bing to another girl for marriage preparation. When Liu Yuan discovered this, she deleted Wang Bing's contact information on her own and blocked all calls and messages from him. She decided to have no further contact with her ex-husband, but Wang Bing secretly continued to monitor Yuan and their 2 daughters. Later, Wang Bing admitted that he was the man secretly following Xiaoding on her way home from school. Wang Bing recounted that one evening he saw Yuan meeting a stranger man and they had affection for each other, which made him extremely angry to witness Yuan's image with that man. After returning home, Wang Bing couldn't sleep and felt unbearable jealousy. The next day, when Yuan and their eldest daughter went to work and Xiaoding went to school, he returned to the house and installed a camera in the closet to monitor the activities of the Xiaoding and her parents. Watching the surveillance camera became a daily routine for Wang Bing, and he noticed that after the divorce, Yuan showed no signs of sadness, but quickly started a new romantic life with another man. It turned out that only Wang Bing was suffering and regretting this relationship. Therefore, he became extremely angry and began to plan revenge on Liu Yuan by attacking her. He wanted to render her unconscious and use ropes to interrogate her about everything. However, before finding a convenient opportunity, Xiaoding discovered the surveillance device, and Wang Bing had to stop this dangerous activity. In the end, he silently returned to the house to retrieve the surveillance camera. He revealed that he had prepared some tape rolls and gloves in advance to carry out his revenge plan on Liu Yuan, and he was waiting for the right opportunity to act. That day it was raining heavily. There were very few people on the road, and Wang Bing took advantage of this opportunity. He used the stolen key to sneak into his ex-wife's old house, took a frying pan from the kitchen, and then hid in the bedroom waiting for Liu Yuan to return to attack her. What he didn't expect was that Liu Yuan had changed her shift with a colleague, so she didn't come home early as usual, but worked until late. Xiaoding came home from school and was the first to return home. Wang Bing, angry that he couldn't continue to monitor Liu Yuan as Xiaoding had discovered the surveillance device, wanted to punish the little girl. When Xiaoding saw Wang Bing holding the frying pan with a fierce expression on his face, she became scared and quickly ran away. However, after only a few steps, the little girl was caught by Wang Bing and fell to the ground. He then took the pre-prepared tape roll and tightly bound her, but Xiaoding was frightened and continuously cried and begged Wang Bing to spare her. Worried that her loud crying would be heard by the neighbors, Wang Bing gagged her, but he was bitten on the hand by the little girl. Already in a fit of anger, Wang Bing repeatedly struck Xiaoding's head with the frying pan, causing her to fall to the ground and bleed. He was horrified when he realized the consequences of his actions, because his intention was only to vent his anger by hitting Xiaoding. After calming down, Wang Bing put on the gloves and went to clean up the room, but accidentally knocked over the shelf, causing the papers on it to fall. While wiping and getting wet, Wang Bing discovered the papers in the frying pan, so he hastily put them in a bag and left. On the way, he threw the frying pan and the bag into the roadside grass. The incident of the murder of a 13-year-old child led to Wang Bing being sentenced to death in December 2022. Although the case was quickly resolved, we have learned a heartbreaking lesson from this event. What's even more frightening is that the murderer pretended to be genuine, and even Xiaoding's mother believed that he was trustworthy and could rely on him. This shows that Wang Bing was quite selfish in his relationship with Liu Yuan. He only loved Yuan and did not care about her children. Each person has the right to choose when entering a romantic relationship, and if they feel unable to accept it, they should let go without causing harm to anyone. At 8 a.m. on October 26, 2014, a man called the Hongzhong District Police Station in Qinghai Province to report that his wife had been missing for 3 days and had not returned home. He had searched everywhere but couldn't contact her, and her phone was switched off. Shortly after, the police went to the man's house and began recording his statement for the investigation file. His name was Wang Liang, and his missing wife's name was Dai Mei, aged 35. Liang recounted that on the morning of October 23, 2014, he opened the gate and rode his motorcycle to work. He worked as an excavator operator at a construction site about 3 to 8 kilometers away from home. Because the area was being filled with water, Liang had to focus intensely on his work. However, he felt unusually worried and anxious that day. Around 11:20 a.m., during the lunch break, Liang tried calling home, but Dai Mei's phone was switched off, which made him even more worried. He tried to reassure himself that her phone battery might have died. Around 5 p.m., when he finished work, he hurried home. Upon entering, he saw his eldest son and youngest daughter playing in the yard. Since the gate was unlocked, the children had entered the yard, but since there was no key to open the door, they waited outside for their father. Upon entering the house, Liang noticed that nothing had changed since he left for work in the morning. Dai Mei's laundry basin, which she usually brought out to wash and dry, remained untouched in the usual spot in front of the yard. Even her favorite pink cardigan, which she had set aside to hand wash, was still in the basin. Normally, after breakfast, Dai Mei's first task was to wash clothes and hang them out to dry, as the autumn weather meant it took longer for clothes to dry. The presence of the laundry basin indicated that Dai Mei had been preoccupied with something and had rushed out of the house very early, perhaps immediately after Liang left for work. When Liang asked the neighbors if they knew where his wife had gone, an elderly woman said she had seen Dai Mei hastily leaving the house at around 7 a.m. Upon hearing this, Liang checked the house again and found Dai Mei's ID card and her crossbody bag still at home, but her phone and house keys were missing. He guessed that Dai Mei hadn't gone far, because if she had, she would have taken her identification and wallet. Liang immediately called Dai Mei's parents to ask if there was any urgent matter that would prompt her to visit them, but they said they didn't know. Similarly, when he asked Dai Mei's acquaintances, they gave the same response. Although Liang believed his wife hadn't gone far, she didn't return home that night, which made him very worried. He kept calling her phone, but there was no answer. Both families and friends of the couple searched for Dai Mei for 3 days, but found no trace of her. After thinking for a few days, Liang suddenly had a chilling thought that his wife might have been deceived and sold to human traffickers by someone she knew. The next morning, he decided to call the police to report his wife's disappearance. All of this information was obtained by the police when they investigated the victim's house. At this point, the investigation became very difficult because there was no crime scene, no victim, no unfamiliar fingerprints, no bloodstains. In short, there were no leads. Looking at Wang Liang's house, it's quite luxurious, with many glass doors in the front to let in light, and the walls are high and sturdy with a solid iron gate. The security in this area is very good, and life is peaceful to the extent that there hasn't been a theft or any serious incident all year round. In comparison to other households in the village, Dai Mei and Wang Liang live a relatively affluent lifestyle. Wang Liang works at a construction site and is skilled in his trade, earning a decent income. Dai Mei used to work outside the home for a while, but her income was too low, so she quit to take care of household chores and the family. The couple has a 12-year-old son and a 6-year-old daughter. In the eyes of the villagers, this is a happy family with well-behaved children and stable finances. However, Dai Mei's sudden disappearance completely changes everything. After recording all the necessary information and conducting a preliminary check of the house, the police requested the telecommunications company to check Dai Mei's recent call logs. Dai Mei's disappearance was temporarily classified as a missing person case. When there were no clear leads to investigate, 3 days later, on October 30th, Liang tried calling his wife's phone again, and it rang this time. He was overjoyed and anxious, but strangely, a man answered the phone, claiming to live in Huihapu, Inner Mongolia. He said he had found the phone last week while on a business trip to Qinghai. The man identified himself as Li Quen and had returned to Inner Mongolia. If Liang wanted to retrieve the phone, he should come there. That night, Liang had hundreds of questions about this stranger. Was what he said true? Did he just happen to find Dai Mei's phone, or was he involved in her disappearance? Did Dai Mei go with him willingly, or was she abducted to Inner Mongolia? Could the man's invitation be a trap? Because of his concern for his wife, Liang pushed aside thoughts and worries about his own safety. The next day, he bought the earliest train ticket to Inner Mongolia to search for his wife's whereabouts. When he boarded the train, Liang remembered to call the police to report the latest information he had obtained when calling his wife's phone, and also inform them of his trip to Inner Mongolia to meet the stranger. The police handling the case immediately contacted the local police in Huihapu, Inner Mongolia, to request assistance for Wang Liang. After more than 30 hours on the train, Liang finally arrived in Inner Mongolia. With the help of the local police, he quickly found the man named Li Quen. When Li Quen handed the phone to Liang, he immediately recognized it as Dai Mei's phone. After verifying that the mobile phone was indeed found by Li Quen in a field in Gangsao village, Li Quen and his colleagues were preparing to leave Qinghai province after their business trip to return to Inner Mongolia. Li Quen found the phone on October 25th, 2 days after Dai Mei went missing. At that time, the rice fields were ripe and golden, so they stopped the car to take photos. While looking down at the ground, Li Quen discovered the phone on the edge of the field, but it was dead, so he brought it back to Inner Mongolia. After verifying this information from Li Quen's colleagues who traveled with him, the police temporarily ruled out suspicions about Li Quen. However, Liang couldn't understand why his wife's mobile phone was lost in a field in a distant village, Gangsao, several kilometers away from their village, Shizhonghong. How could Dai Mei have walked to Gangsao's field while she was outside? The police posed 2 hypotheses. Dai Mei might have gone to Gangsao's field and dropped her phone before disappearing, or someone took her phone and threw it in Gangsao's area. Regardless of the scenario, it foreboded ill for Dai Mei. The police expanded their search to the Gangsao village area and its surroundings, focusing on the location where Li Quen found the phone and circled a search radius of 4 kilometers. Unfortunately, even after 3 days, they found no useful leads. While Liang was still searching for his wife's whereabouts, other strange incidents occurred in Shizhonghong village. 2 women who were very close to Dai Mei also mysteriously disappeared. Based on the telecommunications report, the police isolated individuals who frequently contacted the victim and interviewed each one separately, but no valuable leads emerged. In less than 10 days, 3 women suddenly vanished from a small mountain village with a population of just over 500. Rumors spread throughout the village, causing great anxiety among the residents. These 3 missing women were very close to each other and were often the subject of discussion in the village. The villagers noted that these women dressed more elegantly than the norm in rural areas and often gathered together. Although there were many rumors circulating about the disappearance of these 3 women, when questioned, Liang completely denied and trusted his wife. They had been married for 13 years and had 2 children. To Liang, Daimei was a gentlewoman who managed household chores well and especially cared for him and their children. There had never been any major conflicts between them. According to neighbors, Liang's family used to live harmoniously, but since Daimei stopped working and frequently dressed up, Liang requested her to stay home and take care of the children's education. In August 2014, just about 2 months before Daimei disappeared, she quit her job and returned to work as a homemaker in the family. Although she no longer worked, she often went out, sometimes spending the whole day outside while Liang worked all day and their children were in school. Interestingly, after Daimei disappeared, 2 women who were close to her also disappeared shortly thereafter, causing a stir in the area. However, the police found no leads for this missing persons case. 6 months later, as villagers gradually forgot about Daimei's disappearance and the other 2 women, on April 10, 2015, a villager in Gangsao village discovered a horrifying incident. According to the man named Huang, he rarely visited that area, only a few times a year. That day, while watering his pine forest, he smelled a strong, unpleasant odor. Initially, he thought it might be a dead animal, so he grabbed a shovel and followed the stench with the intention of burying it. However, just a few seconds later, Mr. Huang hastily threw away the shovel and ran away in panic. What Mr. Huang saw was a severely decomposed female body lying under a tree in a supine position. Her legs and head were tilted to one side, and her left arm seemed to be fractured, causing it to twist in a bizarre manner. The horrifying sight made him collapse, trembling on the ground, and after regaining his composure, he finally pulled out his phone to call the police. Upon receiving the report, the district police of Hongzhong immediately arrived at the crime scene to investigate. The forensic doctor stated that the body was in an advanced stage of the decomposition, with hair and scalp nearly completely peeled off, and the face severely disfigured beyond recognition. The left forearm of the body was broken, with an open fracture causing deformity, indicating a strong, forceful impact. The skin in many areas of the body was decayed to the extent that bones were exposed. After the forensic examination, the forensic doctor concluded that the victim was a woman aged between 32 and 37, approximately 1.57 meters tall, with long hair. The cause of death was mechanical asphyxia, occurring approximately 6 months prior. The body was dressed in a red coat, black pants, and black short boots, with a lot of dirt stuck behind the heels of the boots. The police surmised that the victim, after being murdered, was dragged by the perpetrator, causing her body to be positioned supine. After preliminary identification based on the physique and clothing, the police determined that the victim closely resembled Daimei. DNA results confirmed that the deceased was indeed Feng Daimei, 35 years old, who was reported missing 6 months earlier. In the private parts of the body, there was a strange DNA sample of a man, which, when compared, did not match anyone in the international database. In addition to the footprints and circular imprints left by Mr. Huang at the crime scene, there was another distinct men's shoe print. These were clues that might be related to the victim, as they were very close to the body, and the area was rarely frequented. The forensic doctor collected a DNA sample from Daimei's private parts, which was semen from a man, but when tested, it did not match Wang Liang. Due to the long time elapsed, it could not be determined whether the victim was raped or had consensual relations. Although the investigation had no clear direction, Daimei's husband suddenly provided a significant lead to the special task force. Wang Liang remembered that a man named Wei Cheng had called his wife many times before she disappeared. After Daimei went missing, Liang called this Wei Cheng to ask if he had seen his wife, but the man claimed he didn't know who Liang's wife was. When Liang asked Cheng where he was, he didn't answer and hung up the call. When Wang Liang called back, the man turned off his phone. Although Liang didn't know the extent of his wife's relationship with this man, it made him suspicious, especially after discovering Daimei's body. The police quickly located a man named Wei Cheng, who was a former colleague of Daimei. Cheng admitted that on the morning Daimei disappeared, he called her to invite her out, and she agreed, but he didn't meet her at the appointed time. That morning, he went to the gate of Shihongzhong village, but when he called Daimei's mobile phone again, it was turned off. How to determine if Cheng's words were true? Cheng immediately provided alibi evidence afterward to prove that he did not meet Dai Mei. When he couldn't contact Dai Mei, he immediately called Chi Hua, another former colleague, and they went to the Xining Zoo, several dozen kilometers away, and spent the whole day together. Chi Hua, a 33-year-old married woman, was originally Dai Mei's niece-in-law. Despite being family, Chi Hua and Dai Mei were very close due to their similar ages. However, Chi Hua also disappeared shortly after Dai Mei went missing, adding another layer of mystery to the case. So who could corroborate Wei Cheng's testimony? The police continued their search for Chi Hua, and after about half a month and various comparison methods, they finally located her living in Anmudu, nearly 800 kilometers away from Shihongzhong village. Initially, the police thought finding Chi Hua would provide a new breakthrough in the case. However, upon investigation, they learned that Chi Hua had left home due to marital discord, unrelated to Dai Mei's murder. Furthermore, Chi Hua confirmed what Wei Cheng had previously said was true. With all leads cut off, the case gradually reached a dead end. At this point, Dai Mei's parents reported to the police their suspicion that Wang Liang had argued with Dai Mei, and in a fit of rage, he killed her and disposed of the body. On the surface, he pretended to be worried, traveling alone to Inner Mongolia to search for Dai Mei to avoid suspicion of being the murderer. Although Dai Mei's family had no concrete evidence for their suspicions, the police learned about the rumors surrounding the victim's life from the villagers. Moreover, Liang's concealment of Dai Mei's grievances indicated a need for further scrutiny. It was plausible that Wang Liang discovered his wife's unusually close relationship with another man and in a fit of rage, led to her demise. The police investigated covertly but found nothing suspicious about Liang. On the other hand, Liang's colleagues at the construction site could testify that Liang had been working there all day on the day of the incident. The hypothesis that Wang Liang hired someone to kill his wife was also ruled out due to no financial irregularities. Liang's phone records during that time also revealed nothing suspicious. From various investigative angles, the police essentially ruled out Wang Liang as a suspect. On a late April day in 2015, after reinvestigating the police telecommunications report, several more numbers in Dai Mei's phone book were identified. One of them was Wang Hongnan, a 30-year-old divorced man and a painter at the construction site, who was also a former colleague of Dai Mei before her disappearance. As the police investigated this man, Liang provided another crucial piece of information. Just before the Lunar New Year in 2015, immediately after his wife disappeared, Wang Hongnan unexpectedly called Liang and told him to come and collect Dai Mei's salary from her previous job, which was currently being paid by the contractor after several months of delay. At that time, Liang didn't know who Nan was because previously he had asked his wife who she was working with, and Dai Mei replied that she was working with a group of women. Nan and Liang were completely unfamiliar with each other, so why was he so eager and kind? Investigators found Wang Hongnan, but in their conversation with him, they didn't detect anything unusual. However, during the subsequent investigation, the police discovered that the relationship between him and Dai Mei was not as simple as he claimed. Nan said he and Dai Mei were not very close, just colleagues. But upon deeper investigation, the police found that the night before Dai Mei disappeared, they exchanged text messages. Previously, the police hadn't paid much attention to the text messages between the two because the content wasn't particularly noteworthy or suspicious. It was merely Dai Mei asking Wang Hong to buy her favorite buns and soft drinks. In the interrogation 6 months prior to the police's request for cooperation in the investigation, Wang Hongnan claimed that although he received the messages, he didn't meet Dai Mei on the morning of October 23rd because he had an urgent task and couldn't make the purchase. Though Wang Hongnan lacked external evidence, the police also had nothing to incriminate him. Asking a former colleague or acquaintance to buy food and drinks was normal if they were nearby. However, the unusual aspect of this incident was that Wang Hongnan's house was in Haizi town, while Dai Mei lived in Shihongzhong village. Though both places were in the same district, they were 25 kilometers apart. If their relationship was merely that of former colleagues without much closeness, why would Dai Mei ask Wang Hongnan to buy her breakfast early in the morning, and why would he agree, considering the long distance? Faced with this question, Nan hesitantly explained that he often bought breakfast from a very good bun shop. Once, while having breakfast at the construction site, he met Dai Mei and gave her one. Dai Mei liked the buns there, so he bought them for her a few times later. Perhaps that day, Dai Mei wanted buns from that shop again but didn't know where it was, so she asked him to buy them, and he kindly agreed. The police went to the restaurant where Wang Hongnan often bought buns to investigate and discovered that the plastic bags used there matched the plastic bag found at the crime scene. Additionally, they sold the type of soft drink, Daimei liked, similar to the open bottle found near the body. These food and drink items perfectly matched Daimei's request in the text message from the previous evening. It was clear that Wang Hongnan lied about not meeting Daimei, and the shoe prints left at the crime scene matched the size of shoes Wang Hongnan was wearing. This further convinced the police that they were on the right track with this investigation. Although the investigation gradually revealed many suspicious points and lies in Wang Hongnan's testimony, relying solely on these deductions couldn't convict him of murder. Therefore, the police decided to secretly collect Wang Hongnan's DNA. 2 investigators pretended to invite him to dinner to prepare DNA samples from the chopsticks and food items he used during the meal. During the dinner, the police observed Nan's demeanor and noted that he seemed anxious, even trembling with the chopsticks, but still tried to appear calm. Subsequently, Wang Hongnan's DNA sample was sent to the laboratory for analysis. The results showed that Wang Hongnan's DNA matched perfectly with the DNA collected from Daimei's private parts. Finally, Wang Hongnan was immediately arrested by the police. He quickly confessed the entire process of Daimei's murder to the police. Wang Hongnan recounted that he and Daimei started to get to know each other over a year ago, initially through online chatting. As they frequently conversed via text messages, their feelings gradually developed. To spend more time together, Wang Hongnan introduced Daimei to a job at the construction site. From then on, they worked together in the same group, allowing them to spend more time caring for each other. Daimei was very enthusiastic and took care of Nan, even patching up and washing his protective clothing if it got torn and dirty. Nan knew Daimei was previously married, but she had divorced, and both of them felt lonely and developed special feelings for each other. Daimei had completed high school, while Wang Hongnan had only finished junior high school, so sometimes Daimei would use words in her messages that Nan couldn't understand. Each time Nan asked, Daimei would patiently explain, making him feel that Daimei was both gentle and enthusiastic, and he felt a bit of admiration and understanding for her. There were a total of 16 bun shops along the way from Wang Hongnan's house to Daimei's, but Wang Hongnan didn't buy from any of them. Instead, he rode his motorbike quite a long way in the opposite direction to buy buns for Daimei. This was because they had once had breakfast together at that bun shop, and Daimei praised the buns there as delicious. Nan remembered this well and went there every early morning to buy buns to please her. On the morning of October the 23rd, 2014, they met in the pine forest near her house as usual, but they had only been together for about 20 minutes when Daimei received a phone call. On the other end of the line was a man who wanted her to come to him immediately, which infuriated Wang Hongnan because Daimei agreed without hesitation and got up to leave. He repeatedly begged Daimei to stay, but she adamantly refused. An argument erupted, during which Daimei insulted Wang Hongnan, calling him a man who couldn't even afford groceries before his wife left him. Provoked by this weakness, Wang Hongnan became angry. He remembered getting up early to stand in line and run a long way to buy buns for her. Yet, after running a long distance to meet her, Daimei was leaving to find another man, which made him feel jealous and resentful. When Daimei targeted his weakness to mock him, Wang Hongnan lunged at her, choking her. In the struggle, Wang Hongnan broke Daimei's arm and then strangled her to death. Regaining his composure, he realized he had killed her and hastily threw the body under a more secluded tree in the pine forest before returning home. Several months later, when the contractor paid the overdue salary, Wang Hongnan called Daimei's husband to discuss the money, but before he could ask further, Daimei's husband was shocked. Wang Liang said he didn't know any male colleagues of Daimei, and she only mentioned having female colleagues. Upon hearing this, Wang Hongnan hung up. He had no idea that Daimei had kept their relationship secret. In July 2015, Wang Hongnan was sentenced to death for murder. From extramarital affairs to conflicts and murder, this relationship outside the norm led to a bizarre outcome. It's strange because the one with the right to be jealous here was Wang Liang, but he knew nothing about these complex relationships. Meanwhile, the lovers became jealous of each other and, ultimately, it led to murder. Sometimes love seems incomprehensible, like chasing KPIs or something. Sometimes one person is romantically involved with 3 or 4 others. Most people know that relationships outside the norm are wrong, but many still find it exciting to be a third party or engage in clandestine affairs. This psychology may stem from a preference for extreme sports, and since these romantic affairs are already wrong, it's hard to have a proper ending. In fact, many couples have left their spouses for a third party, but most couldn't last because marriage is the legally protected main relationship. How do you feel about today's case? Leave a comment so we can discuss, and if you liked it, don't hesitate to leave a like and subscribe to the channel to support us. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.